Hello and welcome to this lay-by Q&A. I've had a fab day today. I am just waiting before I head off to my last client, and I don't know how to do this technologically, so I'm going to show you, but look at that view. It is a beautiful day in Devon. I've had a fab day. I've seen a thoroughbred that was a racehorse is now doing PSG dressage. I've seen a thoroughbred that was in training over big fences, has run around Aintree and is now doing point-to-pointing. I've seen a horse post up for the ligament snip for kissing spines. What else have I seen? Oh, a super jumping, well, little horse, Connemara Cross. He's just a bit sore behind. So yeah, fab day out doing the job that I love. The question today was from a friend who is also a client, and her question was that she had read and has heard so much about biotensegrity and also neuroplasticity. She's seen these words on the internet and she wondered, should she be concerned about them or worried about them? And what are they? So in terms of what are they, I can explain that one is a scientific theory and the other one is science. And interestingly, I don't think they make a jot of difference to your day-to-day practice if you don't know about them and you're not in the world of either sort of research or maybe therapy or any kind of that sort of professional side of things. So as an owner, as a rider, they are interesting. They're concepts. Oh, the sun's so bright. They're concepts that are relevant, but knowing about them isn't going to change your day-to-day life. But it's useful if you've read them to find out a little bit more about them. So let's start with biotensegrity. So when we first started looking about how animals and how horses move, humans are animals too, of course, we looked at things in quite what we call a reductive manner. So what that means is that we've boiled it down to having a look at individual joint angles or individual muscle movements. And what that has meant is we've looked at it a very structural, almost like a bricks and mortar type building, looking at relationships between how things move, thinking about the bones as struts and the soft tissues creating those movements and the joints just happening to be the articulations in between. But with biotensegrity, what the principle is actually there is a sort of an overarching system in the body that is created through connective tissue. So between the muscle and tendon units and between the muscle and the fascia units, that actually create tension to draw the body parts relatively away from each other. So they hold each other in this tension, and that is how we get this connection. Some people say, my big toe's connected to, getting a headache, that kind of thing. And it's really, really interesting. It's fascinating when you look at a completely different biomechanical model of how the body works, but it does overlay with what we know. However, it's more global, it's more holistic, and it's very difficult to study and understand in the way that we've previously studied and understood kinetics and kinematics. So, the movements and the forces that we see with biomechanics. So it is just, it's another way of looking at how the body is held together. It's very integral with this idea of myofascial change through the body, and it's something that I consider, but I also think holy, this is complex. I'm not quite sure where this sits in the whole picture of biomechanics and how I can measure my effect, because I can't measure biotensegrity. So that's biotensegrity, and you can read a lot about it. You can Google it and you can see these biotensegrity models where we have the relative these like sticks, little wooden dowels that are held apart by string, and there's nothing that looks like a joint to us in them, but the system is there holding this structure together. So it's really, really clever. And then the other one, neuroplasticity. Now, this is a phenomenon that has been measured quite a lot, and we know that it exists. So this concept of muscle memory, the idea that neurons that fire together wire together, habitual patterns of movement, that you strengthen these neural pathways, and if you have any kind of damage to your cortex of your brain, people that have had injuries, head injuries or strokes, we know that we can use the plasticity, the ability of the nervous system to mold, to retrain and use certain neural pathways that then become, replace older ones, or become faster and more efficient, or we completely use different pathways to recreate what we've lost, if say we've lost it by injury. So really it's about the learning effect and the ability of the nervous system to mold and to adapt, both centrally in the brain, where we've got these the cortex is this homunculus, which has various areas for different parts of our body. There's people call it real estate for all the sensory motor pathways that go to like the foot, the leg, the bottom, the spine, the head, that kind of thing. So that's our central nervous system, but also in our peripheral nervous system. So we've got obviously the sensory motor nerves. The sensory nerves come in from the periphery, the motor nerves go out to the muscles, and that adaptation of certain routes becoming better and more efficient is all about this idea of neuroplasticity, the idea that it is capable of change, and we can train it and we can influence it. And from a therapy point of view, if we are working with a person or an animal with a neurological deficit, so maybe they've had an injury, maybe they've had an illness, then we certainly use that principle of neuroplasticity to our advantage. But from a training point of view, it also fits in, even if you don't consider that you're molding the nervous system. You do know that certain activities get easier with practice, and you hardwire those things that originally were really conscious and you had to learn about, and then it becomes you become consciously so unconsciously competent at them, and that is because we've trained all those pathways, as well as obviously the musculoskeletal system as well, because that has to adapt. But we've become good at a certain something because we've repeated it and we've practiced it, and also we can change inputs, change the way that we approach our training to have a different effect on our neuroplasticity. So that is really, really fascinating as well. But yeah, so it's complex, isn't it? Because we can read so much, we can hear so much that's out there on the internet, and it's amazing that so much is available to us and the knowledge that you can gain. However, it potentially is confusing. It is going to put people out their comfort zone and perhaps make people worry that they don't know enough. But actually, on a day-to-day basis, if you're doing what you're doing and you're considering how your horse feels, both mentally and physically, then you're doing the right thing anyway. And if you want to learn more about it, then yeah, by all means do. But if you don't and you're happy with what you're doing, then that's also fine too. Right, I'm going to sign off now. I think it is time to go and find my last pony of the day, and then I will be heading home. So I hope everybody's well, and speak to you again soon.